November the 26th is probably going to be the most watched budget in recent times.
One client pulled me to the side and told me about his second family that the current family didn't know about.
Really? I told you it was a Netflix series. It is.
But the key is coming and having that conversation early. Don't just bury your head in the sand. Don't be embarrassed about your family situation.
So what is your plan for this business? What are your goals and your achievements?
Have you ever seen any fisticuffs, Luke?
Yes, I've had I had one farmer launch across a boardroom table at the other brother.
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Welcome to the podcast. All three of you that have never been here before.
No, excited to be here. Thanks for having us, Ben.
And of course, DFA Law are our media digital partner, and Cotton's Group have been an advertiser of All Things Business for a number of years now, but you're also obviously on the podcast as well. So we're bringing you both together where we're going to talk about succession planning and family businesses in particular. But before we do that, Kirsty, just introduce yourself to our audience, please, and then pass on to Luke.
Thanks. So hi everybody, I'm Kirsty Simmonds. I head up the corporate team at DFA Law. So I help local business owners grow and sell their business.
Hi everybody, I'm Luke Prout. I run the tax team at Cotton's across all the offices. My background is I'm on the more corporate side and business side of things, and obviously work with my esteemed colleague Surley.
I need to interject as well, because out of all the tax people I've met, you're one of the most entertaining as well, Luke, okay? Which will come across today. Jo?
I'm sure we will, actually. So I'm Joanne Surley, work with Luke. I'm more on the private client side. Advising owner-managers on succession, entrepreneurs for past 30 years.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're going to talk a bit about family businesses and succession planning. But I need to talk budget first of all. All right. Now, there's more. Don't worry, Kirsty. You don't feel like I'm going to put you on the spotlight at all. But would you agree, Joanne and Luke, with me if I said that November the 26th is probably going to be the most watched budget in recent times?
I would say probably definitely. I mean, the last budget last year was interesting, shall we say. There
kick
was a lot,
in the teeth?
Yeah, well, eventually that's what it came out as.
Kick in the teeth, and it caused a lot of panic, which we're still seeing now. There's an old saying, we are tax specialists, but there's an old tax saying, you don't let the tax tail wag the dog. You don't let tax be the ultimate driver of what you do as a family. You've got to look at politics, commercial aspects, succession, all these types of things. But for some reason, the changes in the budget last year, especially in relation to the inheritance tax and the restriction of the business reliefs for businesses and for farmers. Now, there's a lot of focus all about the farmers, but actually, it affects all businesses. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of, I think that, whilst we're here to support our clients, and do work with them on tax mitigation, ultimately we make sure that's not the driving force behind their decisions, but it has become, tax has been the driving force of decisions.
But not just that though. If you look at just the NI increase, I mean we as a business here, and I know there's lots of other businesses regionally that are in a similar position. We've got more work now than we did this time last year.
Yeah.
Okay, but as a direct result of NI, we had to make our first redundancy in May this year, which isn't a nice thing to do at all. But that wasn't because work was drying up. It was just because of the costs. And yet there are some businesses in this country that they would have, their POE, for example, would have gone up significantly. And yet we would have only, as a business community, would have probably had 6 months' notice, because obviously it was when the budget was last year. Do you see any surprises coming on the 26th, Joanne?
Not necessarily in terms of that. I think that hit businesses particularly hard. They hadn't budgeted for it, so that was a huge cash flow problem for them. We are hopeful that there will be some changes for business owners, but that's more around the succession and the agricultural property relief and the business property relief, which was restricted in the last budget to $1 million. We are hoping, and they're starting to hear on the grapevine, that might increase to $5 million. It's likely it can't continue to be all bad news, because that's just another nail in the coffin for the government, potentially. Yeah. So there has to be something at some point in time, whether it's this budget or the next one, but certainly there needs to be something. Businesses are struggling. I know the growth forecasts that came out still looked good, but it's like, could they have been better at the end of the day?
I don't know, Luke. 26th of November is a bit late for an autumn budget, isn't it? Any rhyme or reason, do you think, why that would be?
No, it was a month later than the similar. So we were forecasting end of October this year. Actually, for us as tax advisors, that's quite good news. Because
I'm glad that you're right.
We've got time to get some work done.
Because when we're working towards an October budget, and suddenly we find it's now the end of November, actually, in terms of getting things done pre-budget, actually, it's music to my ears. But in terms of, it is quite late, because especially if there are changes to next following April, that's a month less to plan. But interestingly, over the last few years, quite a few years ago, is when but there would be a budget announcement. It was always this is the announcement. It comes into effect following April. So things like the introduction of the dividend tax nearly 10 years ago now. It came in the following April, so it gave business owners time to plan. Now, the changes we see these days are, this is the change and it's happening tonight, or from midnight tonight, and it doesn't give anyone time to plan. And actually, from the government's point of view, it's a missed opportunity, because what the dividend tax, so when they introduced the 7.5% dividend tax rate, and they said it comes in from next year, what that meant is people, businesses were declaring dividends in advance of that to save 7.5% tax, which actually meant that following January, the tax the tax income tax from tax receipts was actually one of the largest surpluses ever. So it actually brought a lot of cash in very quickly.
And because one of the things that's been noticeable from the conversations I've been having since that budget was announced was the larger organisations that are budgeting for next year are perhaps delaying on things and delaying on decisions, because they want to be sure of what's going to be coming out of the 26th of November. So, I mean, it's different because of the nature of your work, but this will be the first budget that I'm certainly sitting down and watching and listening to, because it's not that I think previous budgets I always wait for I usually wait for what you guys and other accountancy firms write up and read the summary. But I think it's going to be very eagerly anticipated, should we say, either way. So that leads us then on to succession planning, which is something that we've touched on already. So Jo, how far in advance do you start to plan with your client succession planning? When should they start thinking about the exit?
Well, generally we would say you should think about the exit from the beginning. So what is your plan for this business? What are your goals and your achievements? But generally most clients aren't thinking like that. And then we would say that sort of at least 3 years in advance, or as soon as you start having those thoughts in your head, then you should be talking to somebody. If you wait till when you want it to happen, it's really too late to do any planning, and then we're just trying to get you through that process. So the sooner, the better, ideally, when you start your business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that old adage, isn't it? Failing to plan is planning to fail. So the sooner, the better. There are then just more options available to you.
And Luke, does it become more complicated if it's a family business?
Yes, it does, because you've got emotion that you get with family-run businesses. They don't generally see themselves as a corporate. They see themselves as the family. Mum and dad do this job. The son and the daughters do different jobs. and then you may, and also, for example, you might have some long-term employees as well into the mix. So it does cause a problem, and we have to manage that. Whereas a business, let's say, more, you still family businesses, but you might get where there is a management team in place, and it's just a slightly different dynamic. And also, you've got family businesses where maybe some family members are they're doing roles which if they weren't in the family business, would they be doing that role
from an efficiency perspective?
Yes.
And are they no.
So sometimes you see resistance. Especially
a lot of variables to take into consideration, because I was surprised that there's over 5 million family businesses in the UK. I mean,
there's a lot. There's some statistic like the family businesses industry, if you like, generates something like £595 million.
No, it's
employing billion, and employing 13.9 million people.
Yeah.
It's a big industry.
I was very surprised at that stat, and I suppose as well, at what point do you, particularly when you've got generations involved, at what point do you decide, right, could you come back to your point, Joe? Yes, at the beginning is when we want to know, when we start talking about exit and succession. But if a business has been going for 20 years or 25 years and dad or mum decide, right, I'm going to pass down to Lisa and Dave, but Lisa and Dave don't want to take it on. In fact, there's a really good example locally of Warwick's in Wellingborough and Northampton. Mr. Warwick, God bless him, he passed away a few years ago, but his son, I think it's Neil, forgive me, it might not be, but I think it is Neil that runs it, tried to sell it for over a year, couldn't. His children don't want to be involved in it because they've gone on and gone down another career path. I think one of them lives abroad, and maybe not South Africa, but basically just not interested in it, and he closed the doors. And yet Warwick's is like a successful business in its own right. It served generations of local people in terms of suit hire and suits, and
I know the Warwick very well.
Yeah,
and my wife's from Wellingborough. So.
Oh, okay. It's just sad. So I find it. I know that there's lots of variables to take into consideration, and emotion is obviously a big one of them. But sometimes it might be a case of, actually, we've got this really good business. We've been going 20 years. We want to sell, and I want to sell within the next couple of years. And did you ever come across that?
Yes. So that comes up. So we actually talk to clients about a lot of options they're probably not even considered, because it is the age-old thing is, when I retire, my children will run the business, and that's the only thing we'll ever do. But ultimately, we do talk to clients. I'm talking to one at the moment where actually that's not a possibility. The other option was, do we sell? So we might have some employees that would acquire the business through what we call management buyout process. So a mixture of borrowing some cash and the actual person exiting funding part of the transaction. Again, if the management team aren't strong enough,
and who would decide that?
Well, we'd work with the family, the people selling, and go through all the options. There's a lot of options. So we've got one at the moment where we went through all the options. So no children want to take the business, so that's not an option. The second option was senior management team. It was like, oh yeah, he's a nice old boy. He's been with us 15 years, knows the job inside out, but he wouldn't be able to run it. He's quite. So we discount that option. And then it was a case of, I'm just going to close the doors and actually sell the stock. And I said, well, no, not for your lifetime's work. So actually, we've got our corporate finance team at the minute, and we're preparing what's called an information memorandum. So, and we are going out to speak to. There will be businesses that will acquire that.
Okay, so for business owners that are listening, watching this, and they're of the opinion that actually, selling the business was never on my radar, but for whatever has happened in the last couple of years, they think, actually, I want to have that conversation about who would want to buy my business. You will help them find a buyer.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. We're actually looking at helping them find a buyer, because even if when we've just done a valuation of it, of what we think we'll be able to achieve to acquire it, and it's still it's this particular person, if we can get within the region of what we think it is, he's going to walk away with much more money than if he just closed the doors.
Yeah.
And it is, it's a particular industry that, it's not very sexy. But it's still, it's got a big customer base.
Yeah. Well, it's like you say, it's the lifetime value of that business. It's going to be worth something to somebody. Kirsty, from your perspective, at what point do you, in an ideal world, would you get involved in a transaction?
Fairly early doors as well, so that we can help sort of paper what that exit process looks like. But also from a family-run business, have shareholders agreements in place. A lot of family businesses think that they don't need it because they make decisions at home or they make decisions around the kitchen table. But actually, you need to start having some conversations about what the future looks like, who's making key decisions. Are shares going to spouses of children, for example? What happens if they split or separate? How do you maintain sort of control of the business?
Hollyoaks versus EastEnders with a little bit of Emmerdale sprinkled in, I think, because there's so many variables.
Absolutely.
And also, I suppose, in some family businesses, particularly if the dynamics are a bit complex, you could have...
It's tricky, but the important
thing is...
There's
a Netflix series here, Kirsty.
The important...
There is,
isn't there? Succession.
Yeah, to have
Succession,
absolutely. But to have those conversations and to sort of be open and transparent about what the current owners want to do, what they want to achieve. Have the conversations with the children. Is it a business that they want to take on? If not, what are the other options? And the longer you have to plan and prepare for that, the more options you've got available, the less likely you are just to close the doors.
And Joe, timescale wise, and I appreciate that this is going to be depending on, but typically, how long would it take to, from when a client says, actually, no, we're ready to sell now? If you went from, right, we've got to go out and value the business, then we've got to put together the information. What did you call it, Luke?
Information memorandum. So it's it's basically your
your confidential sales pack of your business, then right through to engaging with the legal eagles at DFA, through to completion. Is that a year, 2 years amount of work, or?
That sort of paperwork process is probably 6 months to a year. But prior to that, you might be, if you're going, so certainly a third party sale, you would be looking at what systems has the company got in place, what risks are there, how is somebody going to try and pull the price of the business down, and try and actually do some work around that.
Plugging the gaps, really.
Plugging the gaps and getting that
somebody's
in place.
value on a business is a family business. I can imagine that could be a big different to what it actually might be worth.
And also, what do you think the business is worth? So sometimes we have people that think their businesses are worth, just a couple of million, but actually if you go through the valuation process, they might be worth considerably more, and also vice versa. And what price would make you sell? So I've been in meetings before where there's been no plan to sell. They've had a valuation of the business just to see where it's at right now, and then they're like, actually, maybe now the time is actually the time for to move it on, to pass it on to maybe a third party, or again to an employees or management buyout. And just going back to Luke's management buyout thing, I think a lot of owners sometimes dismiss that on behalf of their management team and say, oh, they can't afford it, or they wouldn't be interested.
And they don't actually ask.
How do they know if they've not had the conversation? Yeah.
Exactly.
Would you? For businesses that are, again, listening, watching this, and they think, actually, I'm intrigued to know what my business would be worth, would you take that just as a piece of work, just a company valuation?
We have a separate corporate finance team that will do an independent valuation. And actually, sometimes that's better because they are completely independent, so they've got no reason to that it'll be valued at what it's valued at, and it's tested and compared to similar comparable market transactions.
And you just charge that piece of work, and then it's okay. Then they've got that. Yeah, I can see the appeal there, because then it's a case of, right, what do we do over the next 3 to 5 years? This is probably, I don't know if this is maybe with Kirsty, and then we'll bring you both in, or it might be the other way around actually. But I when people say, and this isn't a pop at the public sector, but I suppose it is in a way, you should do this 3 to 5 year business plan. Being in business is so bloody hard anyway. I've this more recently. I just look at it as a year and then break it down into quarters, because of things like on the 26th of November that may or may not have a significant impact on us next year. So and the irony is that those people that are telling you that probably won't be in their same job in 3 years' time, and they weren't in this job 3 years ago either, and that's proven, that's factual. But from a legal perspective, on that 3 to 5 years, what should businesses be doing in terms of getting the foundations right? So a shareholder agreement is one as an example.
Yep.
Should that be reviewed annually?
Possibly, or when any big life event happens, really. So alongside a shareholders agreement, it's really important to get your will checked out.
Yes.
Or make sure you have one to start with, and then review that regularly. So, yeah, absolutely. The three sort of elements all sit together.
It's amazing how many clients we deal with that don't have a will.
Yes.
And and there's complexities because they might be on their second marriages, or as one client pulled me to the side and told me about his second family that the current family didn't know about.
Really? I told you it was a Netflix series.
It's I've seen it all. You end up becoming their agony aunt.
Literally, he's got that person has a second family.
Yes.
That's not that unusual.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Where have I been living?
Or a child, and you have to factor all of this in, and that's when so for example, what me and Joe do is quite we'll, for example, when we particularly have that type of scenario, then me and Joe will try to deal with different parts of the family, so we can be independent.
Oh, it then come out that it then of course.
So we'll deal with independent parts of it, which works quite well. We'll move it to a different office so we can try and. And this is the problem with family businesses: is we've got to remain independent as well.
Have you ever seen any fisticuffs, Luke?
Yes, I've had I had one farmer launch across a boardroom table at the other brother.
Really?
Probably about 10 years ago. No, a little bit. Literally launch himself. Again, it was family squabble. Who gets what? I do this, you do that. Dad likes you better. And
the dynamics of children working in the business versus children not working in the business, and how that all plays out. Yeah,
also employees. So, for example, I've had to set up special LLP that the family members are paid through out of, because you've got the sons on 6-figure salaries who compared with a sales director that's got 25 years experience is probably on less money they're on. But the son's on more money, hours. And you have to deal with that. So we have to then engineer it. So we've got effectively a family office that deals with that element to get around. So you don't want to think the sales director's on less money than the son that's been within the business for 3 or 4 years, because it causes issues. It does cause issues.
But the good news is, if you get advice and you come and talk to people, there are ways round what you're looking to achieve. There's we can route plan a way to get you to where you want to be. But the key is coming and having that conversation early. Don't just bury your head in the sand. Don't be embarrassed about your family situation. Come and have a conversation, and we'll help you work out a route to get you where you want to be.
And the other thing is also coming in to see us early is if you was to sell your business or do a management buyout, and we've not discussed employee ownership trusts yet, which is to sell to an EOT, think about a question I often get, and again it's usually too late to do something about it, is we're about to sell our business for £10 million, these 5 employees, I want to reward them. Well, the day before you sell the business, it's income tax, subject to PAO, national insurance, income tax. There isn't much we can do.
Whereas if they'd told you the year before,
or a couple of years
in advance, we can do so. We can structure it so those employees are rewarded tax efficiently on a sale, and also in terms of especially some third party purchases, is they actually want to retain those staff members within the business as well. Yeah. So again, it's important. That's why we discuss it. Is to bring the senior people in, and we can talk of things like EMIs, enterprise management incentives, growth shares.
We're Cottons Group, accountants who go beyond the numbers to support the people behind each business. Trusted across the Midlands and further afield for over 40 years, we bring clarity, confidence, and practical advice that saves you money. From tax and annual accounts to payroll, self-assessment, and buying or selling a company, we're with you at every stage. Cottons Group, real advice for real businesses. Visit cottonsgroup.com to learn more.
Talk about the employee ownership model, Luke. Tell us about that. Scott Barder operate that, I think, don't they?
Does. I think
they're one of the...
personal opinion on them is it works for the right particular situation. I actually think they're missold quite a bit because.
In what way?
Because again, it's also the terminology is an individual can dispose their family business to an EOT and not pay any tax. So it's not tax free actually because the trustees that acquire the shares inherit their base costs. But ultimately it means somebody can exit and not pay tax. And now when you've got business asset disposal relief from next year at 18% and then the balance at 24%, it's a significant saving for somebody to sell their business to an EOT for say 10 million and effectively not pay any tax on it. So it's sold on that basis, but EOTs are very, very intricate structures, and I've had to unwind quite a few because the wrong business has been going. It's a company that is run. You have a separate board of trustees, and it's run.
So it lends itself to a size of business and probably sector.
It's the John Lewis model. If we're talking about EOTs, it's John Lewis and Waitrose. That's effectively on a larger scale. So when you've got a firm of builders, for example, where I've seen it where firms of builders have been sold to EOTs and have collapsed because it's the wrong type of business to do it. Whereas if it's say it was a marketing business, big marketing business, and you probably had and you've got that management there, then that does lend itself well to an EOT.
Would it be more led on the minimum size of employees? So, I don't know, 500 employees plus? Or would it...
No, I think anything sort of 20, 30 employees is fine.
Okay.
There is within the legislation, there is a minimum number of employees you have to have anyway. But there's a lot of combinations of it. They're often sold on it's tax-free for the sellers and nothing else matters. As a tax person, and the rules are very intricate as well, what you can and can't do. They're quite restrictive. But my view is I've always approached these with clients that if it's right for you, then we will advise on it, but actually equally we will advise if it's not right for you.
Is it a minefield for you, Kirsty?
Yeah. In short, yeah. But like Luke says, from getting the right tax advice to start with is key. Whether it's right for the business is crucial to make sure then, because the legislation is so it's such a tick box exercise. There are so many things that can trip you up that even one of them and the whole thing falls apart, and then suddenly the seller isn't tax free.
No. And the other thing I see with EOTs, again, it's a tax element. So I've had this on 2 or 3 occasions. You got the family, you got the business, one shareholder, they want to exit. It's worth a substantial amount of money. You got an existing management team that actually were interested in refinancing and buying that business. But the seller is like, well, why am I going to sell to you when I can sell to an EOT and it's tax free? And then suddenly you've got an incentivised management team who feel like now they're working for the employees, and then we have to navigate that with things like share options, and it becomes it becomes tax motivated, and then you end up everyone leaving because
and that's detrimental to the business.
Yes.
At the
Yeah,
end of the day,
absolutely.
isn't it? It's that lack of forward thinking. How does this transaction enable my business to continue? And often in EOTs, there's payment over time.
Yeah.
So that becomes critical.
it does.
Yeah, the cash flow in order
cash
to
flow
support that.
scenario.
And I've undertaken and advised on numerous EOTs, and all of them are still very successful. And but it comes back to is when we give the initial advice, it's not just about the tax element; it's about how would this be run? Is it the right business? And for every 10 clients I get ring me up saying I'd like to do an EOT because I've already made the decision because I've read somewhere that it's tax free. We often end up actually probably only one or two. We would, and the rest we either go. We then start looking at other options. And there's some restrictions in the last year's budgets on EOTs. It can't be overvalued.
Three valuations, is it?
Generally, and this is the thing is with trustees, you got to, as I say to the client that's selling who might go on to the trust, I said you got to wear two hats. You might be the seller, but you're also a trustee. Would you pay that for your business?
Yeah.
And that's where we do cash flow forecasts, and we actually see whether it can fund itself. So it is an option. We do we do a fair few of them, but they are always, I would say, in the right situation. And if they're not, then we would advise against it because we've also. I've been speaking to other lawyers and other accountants about
seen them all unravel.
Seen them all.
Yeah.
There's a fair few bits now in our trade press where we can see where EOTs haven't worked.
So it's not the right fit for all.
No.
So we're entering now the Q4, or we're in the thick of Q4 now. But I always think that this is the time of year where people think new year, new me. I'm either going to set up my business or I've got new business goals for the new year, whether that be a merger or an acquisition or indeed an exit. So somebody that's listening to this that perhaps hasn't really considered an exit before, but they're perhaps interested in learning more about it. What advice would you give them? First, we'll start with you, Kirsty, and then we'll go around.
What advice would I give? Come and have a conversation with us. Come and chat to us. Let's explore your options and see what's available to you. And let's talk about what your goals are and how we can help you get there.
And on the flip side of it, if there's someone that's like, actually, I'm not ready to sell, but I've listened to this and I want to perhaps look at an acquisition, but they don't know who they want to go and buy, for example, they're on the other side of the table. Should they still reach out to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. And again, that's something we can help with.
And also from a diligence perspective, fine, you want to go and make an acquisition. How do you know what you're actually buying? Like when you go and buy a car, you take a car for a test drive, you kick the tyres, you can see, how it feels. When you buy a business, it's a whole new entity, isn't it?
Well, we did until Cinch came along. I mean, who would have thought that we'd be buying cars on the internet?
Oh no, without seeing them.
So yeah, I know that was just a no, wasn't it? But I completely understand that, Kirsty.
Yeah, I bought a Tesla and I did it off an app. Next thing I knew, I'd got an email I'd say to go in Birmingham and get it.
Well, that customer journey is a very impressive one, and but there's a separate podcast there about electric cars, Luke. But so yeah, what from your perspective, Luke?
Again, it is planning, and it's that conversation that's really, really key with us, because actually 9 times out of 10 a client comes into a meeting and now we actually go away doing something completely different, because we look at everything in the round, not just that particular thing. I want to sell the business or I want to acquire, but we need to look at it in the round. Why? What do you?
I suppose as well, your profession, people don't work. Oh, I'm saying this, and I'm in it, but it's almost like that out of body experience. You don't see the wood through the trees. You're not working on, what's the old saying? You need to work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas you obviously have got that completely different perspective. Where you'll probably be asking a lot more questions that business owners wouldn't have thought of in the past, and it's those challenges that then make them think, actually, is this the right decision?
Well, I've got one at the moment I'm doing, and actually they came in to see me because it's a very simple, I want to transfer my shares to the children and exit the business. How do we do it? And actually, when we went through it, what you're trying to do, and it's this client's life work. Actually, we ended up doing a family buyout because it was, well, what are you going to live off the rest of your life then? You can't, you can't just take a dividend anymore. And also, capital gains tax goes up for business asset disposals goes up from 14 to 18% next year. And actually, if we do the transaction this side of Christmas or this side of April, we can get you a chunk of cash out at 14%. The company doesn't have to pay you that 14%, it can owe you it, and then you can draw down in it over the next 10 years. And we ended up doing something completely different to what they come and spoke to us about. And actually, on paper, this shareholder should not, they should not pay tax probably for the rest of their lives.
And that's all because of your...
And because of, we're doing it slightly different. And my personal view is, don't give it to the children, because you've got to make them earn it.
And their keep.
Yeah.
And their keep.
Absolutely.
My mum wouldn't give me anything for free. I'm going to tell you now.
Don't get him started on that.
No.
She gave me
An orange.
No, when I first passed my driving test, I got a Corsa that was red, but because she hadn't looked after it, it was pink. And she still charged me £1,000 for it.
At least
For
you got
pink
something.
Corsa?
Yeah, for a pink Corsa. I had to polish it for 2 days to make it red again.
God, Joe, you
You've always forgot the question now.
I'm sorry.
I think I'd agree with Kirsty and Luke. It's the planning at the end of the day, and what do you want? And often what we find is people, like Luke's just alluded to, people have got on ChatGPT, spoke to their friend in the pub, someone on the plane, and therefore they already think they know what the answer is. I would say keep an open mind to those people and come and speak to your advisor, a specialist, and actually get that advice, because when you're looking to sell, you shouldn't just be thinking about the sale. You should be thinking about what actually happens after the sale, and that is critical, certainly from a individual private client perspective, because you go from owning a tax efficient asset to suddenly having some cash, which can be very tax inefficient. So it's what are we going to do then as well? And it's having that holistic conversation sort of with your legal and tax advisors to make sure that what you're doing actually is the right
It
thing
comes
for
back
you.
to where you want the money to go.
Correct.
And that's where we talk about family. So we're selling in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
And this is where we work with the IFA, so the wealth management person. Yeah. Because we look at retirement planning, what they need for the rest of their life. And if they've got an asset, say they've got the family business is worth 10 million, and the IFA is basically saying, well, for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life, you need an asset pot of 3 million. Well, suddenly they've got 7 extra million in their estate they don't really need. So actually we need to be thinking before we sell the business, what do we do with the shares? So when it is sold, those pots of cash go to the right place from an inheritance tax perspective. And again, IHT, it's always been with the correct planning. It's always it is optional. It's not optional if you're in your mid-80s and you've got all the shares and the business is sold. The options become limited.
It's fascinating that this succession planning and exit piece, because there's so many variables. Is there? I know client confidentiality. Obviously, I wouldn't dare to break any of that. But is there one that stands out for you, either because the size or the duration or the drama that went with it, that you could, and if so, that you can share a little bit with us?
Well, not necessarily on a disposal, but on a client coming in saying, "Oh, my daughter's about to turn 40, and as a surprise, I want to surprise her with a directorship." Pardon? What? Like the legal obligations that come with that. There you go. Happy birthday. Have a load of risk, and yet seemingly no reward. So come and talk to us about, how we can help you do that.
That really happened.
Yeah.
But okay, but you can see that because of the willing, wanting to do something.
Yeah. Oh, and
but
the
actually,
prestige of having a director as a title. Yeah, I can fully understand all of that. But actually, it's about knowing that a legal director is a responsibility and the risk. Yeah.
I've had a client historically where in terms of succession, some major shareholder died. The business was left to the daughter. Prior to the death, there was some talk about potential management buyout. That didn't happen. The shares went to the daughter, and then all that happened was the daughter wasn't involved in the business, but started wanting large dividends out of that business, and the management team became very unhappy, shall we say, and demotivated, and that business suffered greatly and ultimately collapsed per se. So I think it broke up in the end. But yeah, that was just very much the planning hadn't been thought of. And in terms of if you're starting planning, because you're doing it in advance, are there things we need to do in the meantime to make sure that what we want to happen is actually going to happen and it works best for the business. So again, it's all about the planning.
Yeah,
at the
that
end of
key
the
word
day.
is planning.
Yeah.
And your organisations, you work very well together, because I appreciate that you'll work with different accounting firms, you'll work with different legal firms, but actually coming to DFA Law and Cotton's Group as a it can be dealt with all under, dare I say, one roof, but it's a lot more transparent and efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just going back to the valuation point that was mentioned earlier. So I had a client who wanted a valuation because she'd come into the shares just because her husband had died and passed the shares to her, was looking at exiting the business. Cottons came in, did a valuation exercise, and actually the price that the business partner was trying to sell them or trying to buy them for much lower, get a proper valuation, and surprise, surprise, they're actually worth a bit of money. And there's a proper negotiation tool then as to how that's going to exit.
And in that as an example, would you negotiate on behalf of the client to in that instance? Because I'm just guessing there that maybe that individual perhaps isn't used to being in that negotiating that environment.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. So if you're out there thinking, crikey, I don't even know where to begin with negotiations like this,
they can have that conversation with you, and then you can then go negotiate on their behalf.
Yeah, and between Cottons and DFA, we can definitely help with that situation.
I would just add to that, if you've got an advisor that's not willing to be in the room with another advisor, be that it's a tax person doesn't want to be with the IFA, or the legal person, or the legal or IFA not wanting to be with the tax advisor, I would say you should be asking questions in that instance.
Yeah,
so your advisors should all be open to sitting together and chatting together and coming up with
being on the
that
same
solution.
team.
Well, that's the holistic
Same team,
overview, isn't it? Yeah.
We're all on
And
the same
equally,
team.
there will be clients that we have where our clients already have existing accountancy
Yeah.
relationships, and likewise Cottons will have clients where they have existing lawyers,
Yeah.
and we're not trying to step on anyone's toes in that, like very respectful if you've already got those existing relationships.
The priority is, the number one priority is the right thing for
business,
the client.
yeah,
Not
absolutely.
us, it's for the client. What's
Yep.
important for them, and that should never ever be forgotten about. It's important for the
100%,
client,
yeah.
and what's the best thing for them.
So we're at the end of this episode, but we're going to start with Kirsty, and then I'm going to come around to you two who've got a little bit of a head start. So you got a dinner party tomorrow night.
Ooh.
Which restaurant do you go to in Northamptonshire or Milton Keynes?
Ooh.
And who do you take as your three guests, past or present, Kirsty?
Do you want me to answer it and then we go to Kirsty? Okay. So in terms of restaurant, I would go to the Grange in Milton Keynes as a curry house. My guess would be...
The Grange, it doesn't sound very curry house-esque,
No.
does
No,
it?
it is. It's lovely.
Is it?
I can't.
Yeah, I'm not...
We
yeah,
go
but-
almost almost weekly. Not quite. My son,
Grange.
absolutely. Yeah, it's called the Grange.
Okay, yeah.
But it's very nice. It's a very nice family run it. Very nice gentleman. My guess would be David Attenborough.
Oh, yes.
Do they have to be alive?
No, past or present.
Okay, Winston Churchill. Feel like I want someone funny, but I don't know who.
Luke.
Luke, yeah, Luke. I'll have you, Luke, because you'd keep the conversation going.
I'd go out for a curry because I love the curry. I'm going to be a bit different because I just think we'll just have a great night. I'll take my best mate.
Okay.
And I'd honestly, best mate, Liam Gallagher, me and my best mate in a curry house.
Noel and Liam.
Noel and Liam, watch the
Come up with
fireworks.
that.
Comes
yeah.
back to this farmer across the boardroom,
Oh,
doesn't it?
do you know what? We'd have a cracking night.
You'd have something for sure.
I'd be great.
Where would you go? Which curry house would you go to? Saffron's is good in
I
town.
like it's Cushbu in
Burton Latimer.
Burton
Oh,
Latimer.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
lovely.
very good.
I
Yeah.
do like there, but the way I live in Higham, and we've got a nice curry house in Higham
Yeah,
as well.
opposite the
Griffin.
yeah, just next to the co-op.
That's a
very
nice curry. They've just I've walked past because they do a load of work on it the other day. So I do like that curry house.
Go on, Cassie, finish this off.
Oh, where would I go? I'm still struggling to think of like my absolute favourite. I'm not prejudicial. I like a lot of places in Northampton. and Milton Keynes.
Nando's.
Go with guests then.
Guests. The Gallagher brothers is a good shout. That
You've
would
been to
certainly
see
be
them.
entertaining. Yeah. The reunion tour, that was epic.
Kirsty went to Cardiff to see him.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did.
that's the first
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, we went on the second night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was.
Very good.
Yeah, they were very good.
Right, well, listen, thank you all for giving up your time. I've enjoyed that, and I've definitely learned a lot from the three of you, and I hope, and I'm sure, some of our audience have too. So thank you very much.